Welcome, everyone, to Coffee and an Interview. I'm Jacqueline Pena, and I have the pleasure of being here today with Leslie Urbas, who's the CEO of Fabulous Whole Health, and is going to talk to us about digestion codes today. Leslie, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Thank you for having me so much.
I love the word code. I'm already thinking like this magical code inside of us, and then you say digestion, and my brain's already thinking like sci-fi novel. So that's not a good direction to go in.
It's fabulous.
Why don't I put my brain on pause and ask you, what do you mean by digestion codes? What is the work you do, and what are digestion codes?
I love how you went straight to like a sci-fi movie because
Yeah.
to me, what a code is just like our DNA. Our DNA is our code, right? Our DNA is our code. When we are born, we have the same DNA as the day we die, right? But we have different expressions of our DNA throughout our life, right? Depending on what we're calling on. So your digestion code is a part of that DNA. We are all created with certain foods that do well with us, certain foods that don't, certain ways we should eat, certain things that we should do, certain environments we thrive in. But as you've probably heard before from somebody, is that the human is not just affected internally, but we are affected by our environment, right? We know of stories of kids that are adopted, but when they meet people many years later in life, they're like, but you look exactly like your dad. How is that? That's through environment. So we do have other things that absorb into us. So we lose the true digestion code inside of us. Our digestion code is how we eat the best. It is always there. It is the way we should be living. However, we're trained out of this. We're trained out of this because when we turn 6, 7, 8 months old and mom gives us food and we choose not to eat it, then mom may be like, oh my gosh, I can't give her this food. She doesn't like this food. We can't give it to her anymore. She hates it. And then 3 days later, she goes and she says to the doctor, I've given my kid 3 different foods and they don't like any. Right, because they don't quite understand food, right? But then let's say you fast forward and you're 1.5 and your mom has made dinner and you just absolutely are disgusted by it. You don't want it. You don't understand it. And so you throw a temper tantrum, but your mom's like, you're going to eat it, right? And it's like a force feeding. All of those things set us now against our digestion code. Okay. Then we go to school. We're told when we can eat. We're told when we can drink. We're told when we can go to the bathroom. If you're a kid who needs more time in the bathroom, and you go to the bathroom and the teacher thinks you're going too long, so they send someone to get you, and then you go back to class and you're sitting in a class uncomfortable, so you raise your hand again, I need to go to the bathroom, and the teacher says, you just went. You learn your body doesn't know the best. Teacher knows the best, mom knows the best, dad knows the best, the dietitian knows the best, and I'm a dietitian and I'm saying that, the doctor knows the best, all these people know the best. So we take out this internal piece, which is supposed to give us health, right? It's supposed to have us in a healthy, happy body that is just taken away from us through outside sources. We still have the code. That's still our code. We still need to follow it. And a digestion code, when unearthed, becomes the easiest way for you to step into your health without all the effort, like all of the mainstream diets are trying to tell you, oh, Weight Watchers is so easy. Oh, this is so easy. But we get to them and we realize this is not easy because that's not in alignment with our personal digestion code. But nobody's taking the time to help us uncover what's been there all along.
Yeah. I don't think anyone ever talks to us about it. I've never heard anyone talk to me about my digestion code. I've heard people talk to me about how to align my body better, or maybe I don't make certain enzymes or as much as someone else, so I should eat less of this or more of this. Or when you do probiotics, maybe you're not making enough of this, so take a probiotic so that you don't have issues with gas, or you can process the food better. So you hear those conversations, but we don't talk about an inherent digestion code. And now it's funny, I'm thinking about everything you said. Every life is set up to put kind of like boundaries or rules around our digestion from when we're really young without any knowledge of what our own digestion code is. So we're being forced to adapt to something else. So two major ideas that are popping up hearing you talk right now about digestion codes.
Yeah. And that's why I like to work sometimes with families because it's amazing. I've done 3 or 4 calls now with moms for them and children that want to be on the call or that don't want to be on the call. And it's amazing how miraculous the results can be when I talk about the child's code and how fast everything can transition. I remember one mom literally 2 days later, she said, I took my son to the grocery store like you had suggested and put him in the 2 sections that you told me to put him in. And he ate 7 new foods in a day.
Wow.
Yeah, it's so empowering when you can trust and like when you can trust that, okay, I now have an answer and my kid can now be okay. And I can, as a mom, know that I'm doing what's best for my child. It's like I'm actually getting goosebumps because it's very freeing to be able to have that. And, as a mom myself, I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, and I'm constantly, teaching from that perspective and making sure that they're in alignment and I don't push. And when I do, because that's how I was taught, right? When I do, I catch myself very fast. I'm like, okay, that's not what I meant. Let's rephrase this. Let's do something different. And they remember the rephrasing. They don't remember the first part because they remember me doing the second part and how animated I get. And then I get really detailed. And kids love to learn. So,
Yeah. Yeah, they do. So it's very interesting because, I mean, how do you figure out the digestion code? Or even the example of the mom with the child where she kind of let him select things out of two specific aisles and he tried 7 new foods. How do you get to that point? How do you know, how do you figure this out? What makes the most sense for me, my digestion code?
yeah. So there's a few things. One, the first piece is like your internal diet. Okay.
Hmm.
So your internal diet is the system that you were born with. Okay. And I want you to think about this sort of like a Myers-Briggs test, right? Or like, I'm going to go take this test. I'm going to go find this thing out. That's your code. That's how easy we do it through a system I created. Reason why you've probably never heard of digestion codes is it's a term I coined for my basically 4 steps to being free and living in your own digestion code, right? So, as I say, I help mostly professional women to get the life, the body, the health, everything they want without shame, guilt, or sacrifice, right? To incorporate that, that also means part of my family because I'm still having shame, guilt, or sacrifice if I'm not entailing them. So, this is a piece that I want to be there. But this first step is like that. It's like a Myers-Briggs test that I do with somebody on a call kind of thing. That's the best way I have to explain it because most people know Myers-Briggs. And we go through things together to kind of figure out, are you somebody who needs to eat multiple times a day? Or are you somebody that needs to eat big meals or small meals? What foods do better with you? What foods should you not eat? Where could things be out of alignment for you? And really diving into that piece. The second step is really uncovering your own sabotage. So we sabotage ourselves. I did a podcast with somebody the other week that we talked about her sugar addiction. She's like, I love sugar. So I go to the cabinet and I'm like, okay, I want to eat these Sour Patch Kids, but I know I shouldn't eat these Sour Patch Kids. But I eat the Sour Patch Kids. And then I go, oh my gosh, now you're going to be so fat. You're going to be awful, etc. It's a sabotage pattern. What I told her is that there truthfully is no difference between the Sour Patch Kids and a bowl of fruit. They're both sugar. When you break these two things down in your body and they get to your bloodstream, it is sugar. Your body doesn't say, oh, this is a Sour Patch Kid and this is fruit. It just says, this is sugar. Sugar does one thing, or, sugar has a role in my body. So it's going to go do the role. Okay. If it's not needed, it goes back to the liver. It's processed into fat. Okay. That's what it does. Okay. So neither one of them are different. But the moment she sabotages herself and starts thinking, I'm bad, I'm shameful, I'm guilty, I shouldn't have done this, she increases her cortisol, she increases other hormones, which then causes her to double and triple the amount of stress, making all of that become extra weight.
Ah.
Okay, so that's your second step. Now, the third step is uncovering the lies that you believe in, right? Okay, uncovering the lies that we were taught. Like, what did mom say? You have to clean your plate. What did mom say? You have to try a bite of everything. What did mom say? I don't care if you don't like it. You're over at your friend's house. Don't say you don't like it. Be nice and eat it. Okay. Like my daughter today, it was so interesting at her first day of Montessori school. She said she put olive oil on her bread, even though she didn't like it, because she was afraid that she'd be told she had to, because she's going from more of a traditional school to a Montessori school where it's a little bit more free. And I was
Yeah.
like, Lily, if you don't like something, sweetheart, you don't have to eat it. That's just the cool thing. You don't have to eat it. And I'm noticing some of my tendencies that I'm clearing myself now that she has picked up that I didn't really notice. And so I was like, tomorrow, just take the bread and put the hummus on the side and then see if you like it together or not, and ignore the olive oil. You don't have to eat it. Like, you don't have to eat it. But it's interesting to see because she's seen me do things in ways from me, and me trying to unplug the habits and patterns that I've had. So uncovering the lies, and then you get to be free because it's just you. So when, grandma says, here, I baked you this whole big bag of chocolate chip cookies, and you're like, okay, thanks, grandma. Maybe you take them and you're like, thanks. And when she's like, oh, well, you want to try one? You can be like, I'm just not feeling it now, with no guilt and no shame, but I want to take them, right? And maybe you don't eat them. Maybe you give it to the homeless person on the street. Maybe you give them to somebody in your office who loves them or something. Like, you pass it on. You're still sending the love for it. You're still giving out the love, but you're in alignment with your body. And there's no guilt or shame or like bad feeling for like affecting my grandma in a wrong way kind of thing.
I like that because you're giving tools and that's step number three. You're and then step number two too, but you're giving tools to people for those conversations so that they're also comfortable in that process.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm. Okay, so step one is test, right? Know your digestion code. Step two, I'm trying to make sure I took good notes as a student here. Step two, uncover your sabotage. Understand your sabotaging methods, or how you sabotage yourself. Step three, uncover the lies, right? The lies that you've been believing this whole time. Those are three steps. Then
Yes,
what?
it's exactly. And the first one I would say is even like your internal diet, because this is all your code. Your code gets written by the sabotage, your code gets written by the lies. And then step four is you know you. You know you. So now you're able to have that. I always think of self-care when people say this, like,
Mm.
oh, I do self-care. I get my nails done, I get my eyelashes done, I get my pedicures, right? That's technically not self-care. Self-care is actually listening to what you need at that moment, right? So self-care is me being at this moment of, I just need sleep. That's self-care. It's not, well, I scheduled this pedicure, so I need to go get it, or I need this massage or something. Some people hate it when other people touch their bodies in different ways. And until you can get there, why are you suffering through a massage because you hear it's self-care and you're supposed to do it? But it's crazy. To women, we do these things considered self-care because it's what we label them as for women, but that has nothing to do with us, you know? And so that's just it. You're in this inner place of, I can literally look at a food and say, no or yes immediately. And I can eat candy without feeling one shred of guilt. Like, I shouldn't have eaten this. This is going to cause me fat. But at one point in my life, I sure did. My dad and I used to call donuts fat pills. You know,
Oh.
I eat donuts all the time. Like, I think they're delicious now. Here in Spain, the donuts here are just delicious. So I have no problem with eating a donut. And not one thought or a little piece of like that goes through my head. But that was something I had to work through because to me, donuts were fat pills.
Yeah, it's almost like rewriting your mental code as well. How
Exactly.
you think about food, how you approach food, and how you think about yourself and food. So it's a mental process as well, that rewriting of that mental code and your relationship with food. That one's tough for a lot of us women.
Yeah.
Very
That is.
interesting. So you work with women, professional women, in looking at the digestion code and the internal code, that digestion code, and working through some strategies. But as women, sometimes we're caretakers, or we have families, right? We have children or we care for others. And so that conversation becomes a little bit more complex because we might be thinking about our own diet once we figure out what makes the most sense and we change our relationship, but we're also thinking about our families. I'm not going to cook three different meals. I've done that before, two different meals but how do we manage that? So let's say we go through the four steps and I test for my internal code, I uncover my sabotage methods, I uncover the lies, and I know myself. What do I do now with this information, especially if I'm in a family, I'm not a solo person living alone in an apartment?
That's a great question because I like to do it as families. I like for people to do
Mm.
it together. Because the really one of the coolest things is to watch how one small trick can change how much and how your child will react at a meal. It's incredible. I'll take my son, for example. I learned that if I just gave him some sort of cold food at his meal, his entire life changed. He ate way more, he would sit
Mm.
more, he would do different things just from that. You can learn such integral pieces. For myself, it finally made sense why, when I was in grade school, I never ate. I hated lunchtime. People loved lunchtime. I was like, shove it in, get out. I couldn't handle the lunchtime due to the environment in which I was in at lunchtime. I would go home and eat just fine. I would eat breakfast just fine. I ate dinner just fine. I became a snacker kid after in the afternoon, but I didn't eat lunch very well because of the environment I was in. And to know that and be able to support that and to be able to nurture your kid in that, and then to be able to provide them the knowledge, right? So I was standing in this store yesterday. No, it was today. Today. It was today, yes. My days are running together now. And I was in an aisle, and there was a mom and a little boy in the aisle. And the boy was like, "Oh, we need to get these. I love these. These are so good." She's like, "You can't have that. There's so much sugar in that. That's so bad for you." And he was like, "But I had it at, so and so's house, kind of thing." And the mom was like, "I don't care. It's bad for you. We're not buying it." And I said, I'm not judging her. Okay. I understand because I come from patterns. Okay. I understand what was going through her head, and I understand as a mother. And I don't think you're a bad mom for any of that. But a reframe would be simply, okay, I'm going to use my son's name. Okay. So when my
Yeah.
son comes to me and is like, "We need this. It's so delicious. We need to have this." Okay. And I was like, "Oh, I'm hearing you really like this sweet treat. Is that right?" "Yes." "Awesome. What other foods do we like that are sweet?" "Well, I like candy. I love fruit. I love juice." "Awesome. Okay, well, this, while it's sweet, is not as much nutrition as something like our apple. Our apple has a ton more nutrition in it, right?" And then if he's like, "Okay, cool. Well, can I still get this?" I would say, "Sure, but we're going to eat this with a high protein food. We're going to eat it with a snack. We're going to eat with something else that nourishes our body." Okay? Agreement had. We leave the store with said item. Okay. When we get home and he's like, dead set on having the item. "I want this item. I want
Mhm.
this item. I want to have it." I'm like, "Okay, well, we have to have this with something high protein. We need to have this with something else besides this just sugar, right? Because it will break down better in our body and his body, and knowing his digestion code." "Okay, fine. What's protein?" At this point, he can rattle off some proteins, but let's say your kid didn't know, right? You could rattle off some proteins: cheese, peanut butter, lunch meat, something like that. And then here's where moms will stop me and be like, "Well, I don't really know what protein is." Well, that's great. That's what the digestion code really helps. There's basic nutrition pieces in there too. Like, what actually is a good protein? What actually is a good carb? What actually is a good fat? How do we teach kids these? And how do we actually say good? Because I don't like the word good. I like the word nutritious. This is a
Mm.
nutrient dense food, and this has less nutrition. There's not a bad, there's not a good, because it's all relative, right? Juice is bad, okay? To a kid that has a lot of cavities, juice is bad, right? We consider juice bad. It causes cavities. But to a diabetic, juice can be life saving. So you
Interesting.
can't, yeah, you can't call good or bad. There's no good or bad. It's just more nutrition and less nutrition. That's all food really is. And if we could focus on that way and give kids the truth about food instead of "that's bad for you, we don't eat that, that's not good for us." That little boy didn't change his mind. He still loves that food, whatever the food was they were pointing to. Okay. He still loves that food. But the next time he eats it, he'll have his mom in his head telling him it's bad. And that can last a lifetime. And then when we get to 18 and we rebel and we're like, "I'm going to eat the whole bag and I'm going to eat then some," freshman 15 or other health effects, because we're potentially in a battle against it because it was restricted, instead of, this is just another piece of our day. And as long as I eat nutritious around it, I'm a healthy person, has a very different connotation and production of how we act in our own bodies.
It's a whole different way of thinking about food because it is true. We're made to think of food as good or bad in this binary. And I like this idea of the nutrition. Look at food as what's more nutritious, less nutritious, level of nutrition. But there's a lot of rewiring in our heads too about how we eat. And also their foundational components, because you were talking about the balance. If you're going to have this, have some protein, because then our bodies will break it down better. There's this informational piece that a lot of times we don't get when we're thinking about diets, or diets meaning the way we eat, diets whether it's for weight loss too, and just healthy living strategies. We don't have all those building blocks, all those informational blocks about protein with this helps you break down this better. So that's new for me as well in this conversation and looking at the bigger picture. So a couple things is that rethinking about how we see food, understanding the relationship of different kinds of food and how it works, and then how does that all relate to our own internal code? I think is what I'm getting from this part of the conversation.
Yeah, that's great because our internal code doesn't stay ours. Okay. So we're born with this code that we enact on in the beginning parts of our life, right? We're enacting on it. If you've ever met a baby, unless something major has happened, that baby will cry when the baby is hungry. The baby will cry when the baby is wet. The baby will cry when the baby wants you to love it. The baby will cry when you try to put it down and you're just like, I just need to wash my hair. Okay, right? The baby will do what the baby needs, right? The baby has no problem with asking for what it needs and receiving what it needs back,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So that's how we were. That's how our true part is. And we should be able to keep it. We should be able to become a person who says at 1 years old, I'm hungry, I want to eat. Okay. It should be somebody that in the middle of school, when they're hungry, they should be able to go to the teacher and say, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I need to go to the bathroom. And the need should be met. Okay. The need should be met for the child, right? To an extent, like I'm hearing teachers like, why would you say that? Okay. Right. Like to an extent, I understand. Okay. But it can be taught too for the child to understand if the child's just abusing the privilege or really needs the privilege. And if that internal code was intact, nobody would ever abuse the privilege. They would just follow through, right? Okay. So there's that. However, then if you were to think, I don't know if you've ever followed Bob Proctor before, but I think it was, I'm forgetting the person who actually taught this. I feel like his name was like Lee Van der Waal or something. I'm going to butcher his name, but I'm going to draw it. But I'll then explain it. So when we're born, right, we're born with our body. Okay. And I want you to think of, we're born with we're born with our head, but we're only born with our subconscious mind. So think about it as like a fishbowl with an open top. Okay. So
Perfect. Okay.
anytime our parents teach us something, you have to eat this food. You must try this food. You can't go to the bathroom now. You can't drink water now. You can't have this. Anytime they teach us this thing, we're taking it into our subconscious mind, and it doesn't change. That is something that is our subconscious mind cannot say, I believe that or I don't believe it. It just soaks it in. Okay. I want you to think about it like carpet, right? Kid smells chocolate milk and just soaks right in the carpet, doesn't have to say yes or no, right? Okay. So all of this processing that we got before we were 7 years old just soaks right on in our brain. Okay. So now our code is fuzzy. It's fuzzy because while we're born with this internal code, we also have this code we accepted until we were 7. So now we have this little bit of like play. So then we have to come to reality of, is it true? Do I actually have to finish my plate because there's starving kids in China or whatever it was that you were told, right? Am I actually going to be able to mail this food to a starving kid in China before it like rots? No. Okay. So yes, I understand to clean my plate is good because we don't want to waste food, and food waste is a bad thing to an extent, right? But what could I do instead would be to take smaller portions and only go back for seconds if I was truly hungry. That would be a better way to do it instead of clean your plate. Because we don't often finish our plate and we're decreasing food waste, how about we start with smaller portions? If we're still hungry, we come back. And that's what I do for my kids still to this day. Because we, as adults, as soon as they start to get bigger, think they need adult sized portions, which they don't even need. They need very little food at each meal. The more food they're given, the more their mind gets overwhelmed and they potentially run away from the meal because there's too much going on and they don't really know what to do and they're never going to finish it all. So they'll wait and they'll come back for their tiny little snack size, whatever. Mom, I want a snack. You'll hear them say that. Mom, I want a snack. Well, you should have eaten dinner. Well, the snack was a size their brain could take on,
Yeah.
not the big meal, right? But all of these things get shoved into our Rolodex, into our fishbowl. And so it fuzzies some of our code, and it was never meant to be ours. We just accepted it as ours. And now that it's ours, we just have to rewrite it to change it to how it's supposed to be within us.
Very interesting. Just this conversation about portions and how our relationship with food at dinner time, for example, um, and that rewriting of the code, how that lends to code, and then now we need to rewrite that piece on its own is something that I've talked about a little bit before, but it's still kind of new, right? We don't think about where did clean your plate come from. We don't think about, well, they're not eating all that food and then they want a snack, or they're arguing with me at dinner instead of eating. Maybe it's that rebellion because they don't want to eat this massive plate in front of them. And so coming up with those strategies as a family and looking at smaller portions and looking at how to have those conversations with your children also become very important. So those are some of the tools that I'm getting from this conversation right now from you.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah.
fabulous.
It's all about tools and strategies, all about tools and strategies. Um,
Yeah.
we've had a wonderful conversation about our internal code, our digestion code, and how it's built, and this process that you've developed where you test for the code and you understand how you sabotage yourself and understand the lies and then know yourself in this process. Is there anything else you want to share with us in terms of the work you do? Anything that we should know that we haven't talked about yet?
Truthfully, shame and guilt is the killer of everything. Okay. So if you have shame around food, if you have guilt around food, if you have shame around your body, if you have guilt around your body, if you're feeling like you're always sacrificing one or the other, whether it's the life or the body or taking care of the kids or whatever, first of all, take a deep breath. I know exactly how you feel. I feel like I have been a selfless overachiever my entire life. And every box had to be checked for somebody else, right? Every box had to be checked. So it had to look good. I had to look good. I had to do the things. I got to take the vacation. I got to, right? And so I was so focused externally. But all of that was really just to keep the shame, everybody else from not seeing how much shame and guilt I had inside of me. But by having children, I think you really get exposed to what's happening on the inside of you as you watch them.
Mm.
So I start here with take a deep breath and release the shame and the guilt and know that there is an easier way to live. Know that you can help yourself while you help your children. And you don't have to have 17 things going. Well, my kid needs the care here. I need the care here. They need this, because then the next thing that goes is you go out the window. The digestion code can really be a one stop for you to get everybody's answer in one particular place on one spot. And that's where we start to get overwhelmed. So if you could do anything right now, it would be to examine where in your life, your food and your body image, you're holding shame and guilt. Because if you could release some of that, you will transform your children and their lives and so many more on the way.
Great advice. That's very difficult to do. So I know a lot of us have work to do around that release of shame and guilt about food and our body image and where we are. Yeah, a lot of work that needs to be done. I have to do a lot of work myself.
I get it.
Yep.
I get it.
This is
I get it.
amazing conversation. I think that was a wonderful bit of advice there on releasing shame and guilt. And I think that that's foundational for a lot of the work we do beyond just looking at our digestion code and healthier living. I wanted to just see if you had anything else you wanted to share, and also how can we find you and learn more about fabulous whole health so that we can learn more about your process and your strategies.
Yeah, you can find me online, Leslie Urbas. My website is Leslie, Leslie, Urbas, Urbas.com. But if you find me on Facebook or YouTube, which are my two jams at the current moment, you'll definitely know it's me just because I don't know, I've got pink on in almost everything I do. So you'll know it's me because I'm wearing the hot pink. But you can follow me there. You can also just type in digestion codes into Facebook, and I have a Facebook group called Digestion Codes with Wholeness Health. Thinking about other ways, I think that, yeah, those are my main ways right now. And then if you are interested, obviously, I am actually running a couple of beta programs this year for families to go through, so they can uncover as a family what's really going on. Because truthfully, I want to serve the world with the purpose that I have here, which is to really help women know that there doesn't have to be sacrifice, and you can have the life and the body and the family without all the shuffle and the crazy meal planning and the 7 diets plans and the well, Tim eats this and Tommy eats this and Joey eats this, right? Like, instead you actually just have one meal with the laughter you've been looking for.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. And for our listeners, contact information, the Facebook, YouTube, and the website, all that is in the description for this episode. So you can just click on that or copy and paste the link into your browser and go from there. Again, if you have any questions, you can also email us. And again, everything's in the description of the episode as well. Leslie, it's been really an amazing conversation. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And to our listeners, I hope you got a few strategies. I definitely am walking away with a few of my own to start thinking about throughout the week, my relationship with food and the conversations and my own internal code and just looking at some of those habits. So I hope you got a few strategies from the conversation and that you'll keep listening to other episodes and keep learning new things together. Thank you.